since someone wanted to know yesterday, I'll tell you today as well. So, President is at hockey this morning, sailing today for a couple of hours, and then wrestling this evening. I won't give you my headline media figure today because we will be joined in a minute by Timo Lume, who's the Managing Director of ITMS, which is our television and marketing group, and he will be able to fill you in a bit more detail on all that kind of thing. But first, let's just quickly go to Masa for the latest on the testing and positivity rates. Masa?
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us, as always. Today, we will see 26 gold medal events, which sounds a lot. So hopefully you'll be able to see some of those. And in the meantime, as always, I just wanted to give you the COVID cases report. As you have seen already, at the airport test, nearly 42,000 tests were conducted since the beginning of July till August 1st. 35 cases were found to be positive, which means the positivity rate is 0.08%. Meanwhile, the screening tests were conducted more than 480,000 during the same period. 97 cases were found to be positive. The positivity rate is remaining 0.02%. That's all. Mark?
Thank you very much, Masa. As usual, we will come to all your questions and answers in a moment. But as I promised you yesterday, Timo Lume will give you a presentation. Then we'll take all the questions and answers on broadcasting, and then I'll let Timo go on because he's a busy man, so as we all are. So, Timo, off you go.
Thank you very much, Mark. Good morning, everyone. So I'll try and give you in a few minutes an overall perspective of the consumption and viewership of the Tokyo Olympic Games. Firstly, just to note, 1964 was the first games in Tokyo that were held in color to people's homes, and of course now we're sort of entering 60-odd years later, entering a new age with the video streaming. Beijing 2008 was perhaps the first digital games. London 2012 was the first social media games. And Tokyo 2020, I suppose you could say, are the first streaming Olympic Games. From an overall perspective, the broadcast partners are providing more distribution of Olympic content than any games before. So that means more hours of coverage, more platforms, and then new ways to reach users in what we all recognize and understand is an ever-growing but also ever more fragmented media world. This is on the back of the service provided by OBS for the rights-holding broadcasters. They're producing 30% more content than for Rio 2016. So you're basically looking at about 9,500 hours of content expected to be delivered to the RHBs, the rights-holding broadcasters, for Tokyo 2020, which includes all the ceremonies, all the sports, and other supporting content. So then just to go into the consumption or the ratings, overall, globally speaking, the games have been very dominant in terms of viewing and market share, both on television and digital, and I'll go into that a little bit more deeply. TV ratings, again, generally are much higher for the channels showing the games than they would have in an ordinary or non-Olympic year. The opening ceremony global audience, that's something we're still working on, so we don't have an actual number for you, but if you were to ask me what my expectation is, I would say that we would be at the level or perhaps slightly higher compared to Rio 2016. So I would say we would be expecting a TV audience of around 600 million. But as I said, this is yet to be confirmed. We're still working on these figures. Then just a little dive into some of the territories, obviously starting with Japan as the host territory. There's been incredibly strong engagement. So as of the close of play on Sunday, August the 1st, 113.5 million Japanese people had watched some coverage of the Olympic Games. So translated, it means 9 out of 10 Japanese people have watched coverage of the Games. The most watched program, not surprisingly perhaps, was the opening ceremony, where 70 million, so 56% of the addressable Japanese population watched the opening ceremony. In the US, the Olympic Games remain a must-watch moment for the audience, coming in millions. And it's the only program, of course, not just sports, with a prime time average of around 17 million spectators or viewers each night. NBC's broadcast is therefore regularly beating the opposition. The other networks either double or triple the combined amount of all the other 3 networks' viewership. And they're also, for the 128th consecutive night of Summer Olympic Games broadcast, they are leading the viewership ratings. In Europe, which, as you know, has no prime time coverage because of the time zones, broadcast channels have also enjoyed a dominant share of viewing compared to when they didn't have the Games. And in general, 1 in 2 Europeans have followed the Games. Some markets like the UK, this has gone up to 2 out of 3 people following broadcast of the Games. In China, again, strong viewership on both television are going to digital. The highest rated programs have been the men's 100-meter final and the 2 table tennis singles finals, which have been the 3 most watched sports broadcasts since the 2018 FIFA World Cup final. Similar story in Canada. 56% of the population have watched some of the broadcasts, so that translates to 21 million Canadians. Also a stat on India. The only data we have so far is for the opening ceremony, where the viewership was 6 times higher compared to Rio 2016. And then moving on to the digital side of things. So I think we all know the digital market becomes more and more fragmented, but Olympic coverage streaming is breaking new records, and streaming milestones have been set and continue to be set in many markets. In the US, for example, NBC has reported digital streaming is on track to make Tokyo 2020 the biggest digital event ever. Peacock, NBC's streaming platform, has reported the highest weekly usage due to Olympic Games coverage. In Australia, Channel 7 has announced that its Games digital streaming is the biggest in Australian history, whilst on TV there's 62% of the people have watched some of the Games. And in Europe, our rights-holding broadcaster Discovery, on its digital platforms, Discovery Plus and its Eurosport digital services, in the first week of the Games, they've had 750 million streaming minutes consumed, which equates to 18 times that achieved at the Pyeongchang Games in 2018. You've obviously seen, I think, and we've all seen the impact of the new sports, and they've certainly positively impacted television and digital streaming, the ratings and consumption, particularly, of course, in the first week, skateboarding and surfing. Just to give you an example from Brazil, the surfing and the skateboarding make up 5 of the top 10 highest Olympic programs through the first week. Women's surfing on Monday, 26th of July last week, which was watched by over 20 million people, which makes it the highest non-football sports broadcast since the start of 2020. Similarly, the IOC digital platforms are breaking records. So for the Olympics.com incorporating the Tokyo 2020, we've had more than 130 million unique viewers for both the web and app for Tokyo. So we're on track to double the number of viewers compared to the last Games Rio 2016. Fans have also watched more hours of Olympic content on the official broadcasters and IOC's channel on YouTube than they did during the whole of 2016. So comparing the first week compared to the whole, we've overtaken Rio 2016 after the first week. Then perhaps just to finish off, a word on some of our sponsor partners' activities. I think that the key point is our top partners, global partners, are absolutely an integral part of staging the Games, whether this be on sports presentation or fan engagement. Just to give you a few examples on the form, I think you've all seen the opening ceremony and the spectacular Intel drone show. I hope you've also seen the Panasonic projection on the pre-show before the sprint events, so the 100 meters so far, and this will be for some of the other sprint events. There's also, if you've been watching any coverage, TV coverage, you would have seen the AI-powered 3D athlete tracking, what we call 3DAT technology, which has been developed by Intel and Alibaba, which is providing this overlay of performance statistics for the sprint events, and which will continue for the 400 meters and the 4x100 meter relay. And Alibaba cloud infrastructure is enabling a sort of revolution in the services of OBS and the diminution by 25% of the footprint of the IBC. Omega has launched some groundbreaking motion sensing and positioning systems for these games, and you may have seen that with Panasonic they've developed a non-intrusive athlete heartbeat enhancing system which is presenting on the broadcast in the archery competitions. So those are some example, and there's been many other areas where our partners are supporting us both on technology and particularly globally on everything to do with fan engagement. So I'll stop there, Mark, and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Timo. Okay, so as I said, if we could take questions first about Timo's presentation about broadcasting, and then we'll take everything later. So start with the gentleman here, then Graham, then Carlos. Yeah.
共同通信の長谷川と申します。日本語でお尋ねします。よろしいですか。ルメさんに2点お伺いしたいんですけれども、一つは今回無観客という形での開催になって、過去の大会とは会場の雰囲気はかなりテレビを通してでも変わってしまう面もあったと思います。この無観客というのは視聴率に影響したんでしょうか、してないんでしょうか。これが1点目のお尋ねです。で2点目が、先ほど新しく、導入したスケートボードとかサーフィンとか、新しい競技を導入したことでブラジルですごく視聴率が高かったというご紹介がありました。グローバルで見た場合に、この新競技を導入した影響っていうのは視聴率にどのように影響したんですか。ブラジル以外のことも含めてお願いします。以上です。
Okay, thank you very much for your question. So the no spectators. Well, I'm happy to report that really this has had no effect that we have learned from our broadcast partners, or we've seen in the numbers in engagement as a whole, but also viewership for games, whether it's traditional linear or digital. I think this is also helped by the fact that the broadcast is able to convey a sense of atmosphere, obviously, from the sports because of the incredible sporting performances, and also with some of the enhancements like the athlete family moments and getting the fans into the stadium. I think it's also true to say that depending on the market, some of the fans around the world during the last 18 months or so have also been used to watching sports with lesser fans or no fans. So I think this had a minimal impact. And as regards your second question, you're right. Brazil in particular had a real spike from the new sports. And yes, we're also seeing this as we're gathering the data. In particular, I think we'll see an uplift from certainly the countries where the most successful athletes have been, but in general, I think we're expecting a boost to engagement from these very strong sporting communities. The participants and the fans of these particular sports, I think, are really engaging in the Olympic broadcast because they're so happy to be able to see their sporting stars performing on the Olympic stage.
Thank you, Timo. Graham Dunbar.
That's the best one yet. Graham Dunbar from the Associated Press. About the European deal and obviously going down a different road, cutting people's sort of lifelong loyalties in many cases to their state broadcasters. I'm sure you'd have expected some of the criticism from viewers who've only just realised, the change in how they're getting the Olympics. Has the criticism been more or less than you expected? Intense enough to think that there needs to be a rethink for Paris? And what are your current thoughts on where the European broadcasting deal is going in the future, given that these state broadcasters have got very mature digital platforms?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Graham. I mean, firstly, we're actually incredibly happy with the coverage provided by our main broadcast partner, which is Discovery Eurosport, and as you know, they have then conducted extensive sub-licensing to free-to-air channels to adhere with our requirements for free-to-air coverage. So we've actually had overall very positive return, both in terms of the free-to-air coverage and specifically the great coverage provided by the digital platforms and the linear platforms. By Discovery, they have different offerings depending on the marketplace. I know there have been a couple of instances, and I suppose, Graham, you're probably referring to some of the commentary in the UK. But at the end of the day, also there was a specific situation where the BBC and Discovery decided to find their own arrangements. From our perspective, what is important is that the free-to-air coverage requirement is adhered to, and then the fans of sport ultimately have the widest possible choice. And in this case, it became a choice or a combination of BBC and the Eurosport platforms. As for the future, you should know that we always conduct a tender process, an open tender process, which is then open to anyone who wishes to bid for the game. So it is a completely level playing field and open access to all players wishing to acquire Olympic rights. This is the way that we will conduct it in the future and how we've conducted it in the past.
Yeah, thank you. I think, Carlos, no, you'll pass. Okay. Any more questions on broadcasting for Timo? Yeah, there, and then Makako. Yeah, please.
Thank you. With streaming, Jenna Fryer, Associated Press. With the direction streaming's going, NBC is on record that they are building a streaming platform. how much, looking forward, how much do you see the games coming, maybe not coming off major broadcast TV, but moving more towards streaming platforms, particularly the big events that people tune into?
Yeah, Jenny, thanks for the question. It's a good question, and it's an interesting one. Obviously, I think the key thing for us is that we want to continue to adhere to the principle which is set out in the Olympic Charter, which is that we want the widest possible coverage to reach to be available to people and fans around the world. So, as the delivery platforms, the distribution changes, then we will ultimately review this and monitor this, and any adaptations that we may make in the future will be in line with the guiding principle that's set out in the Charter. But for now, it's an interesting situation because we seem to be entering a sort of a transition between what you might call the legacy broadcast, the free-to-air, and streaming is perhaps the streaming revolution, if you like, has perhaps been advanced or accelerated by the pandemic. But we'll keep a close eye on this. But at the end of the day, what will rule the day is adherence to the Olympic Charter requirement.
Thank you. Yeah, Wakako. Thank you.
Thank you. Wakako Yuki from Yomiuri Shimbun. Timo, you have long experience in this field, and allow me, if I recall correctly, President Bach told us that Tokyo Games could be or should be the most watched games in the world because of the COVID-19, because of its symbolism, what sports can stand for. Is there any kind of data available and analytical sense that you have at the moment to prove such a tendency could be viewed in the world?
Yeah, thanks very much for the question. So, obviously, stating the obvious here, but the games haven't actually finished yet, and we've got a long way to go in terms of the number of days and the competitions here. I think what I can say is that two things. One is that we are tracking right now for really, really strong engagement, as I've said, across all digital platforms, and viewership remains very, very solid, and of course, particularly in the time zones, where they can see it live, but across the world. And so our expectation is that these games will be very, very strongly consumed. I think the interesting thing will be is that once we're able to bring all the data back, and this will happen in the aftermath of the games, we'll be able to give a much more precise answer. But we're quite confident that, I don't really like to say if it's the most watched or not, but the reality is that we're seeing stronger and stronger and more engagement, particularly through the availability of all the digital platforms, social media and so forth, that people now use on a daily basis. More so than 5 years ago, more so than 10 years ago, and this will translate into very, very strong engagement, including consumption of video or watching the games. But we'll have to wait and see for the data.
Allow me to ask you one follow-up regarding Japanese figure. You said 9 out of 10 Japanese people watch some kind of competition. Given that there were some kind of anti-Olympic sentiment before commencing on the games, were you surprised to have those kind of figures?
Again, thanks for the question. No, we weren't surprised. I won't comment on the situation before the games. Of course, we were following that very carefully. But I think we were always confident in one thing: is that the athlete stories and sport will break out, because we know very well what the athletes have been preparing for and what they're capable of, and so we were very, very confident that once the game started, their stories would have huge appeal, and would really transcend discussion before, because that's what the games are about at the end of the day. So we of course we never know the exact number, but we were very confident. I think in that we've been proved right. The Japanese people have totally embraced the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games.
Okay, thank you very much. If there are no further questions, then I can tell you that Timo is also available, Timo Lume, outside, if you want to talk to him directly about any of these issues or anything to do with broadcasting and marketing. He's there to answer your questions. So thank you very much, Timo. Let's move to other matters now. So I'm happy to move on. Yeah, gentleman here, coming across, and yeah.
ありがとうございます。東京新聞の原田と申します。高谷さん、マークさん、2人に同じ質問をします。今、東京では、コロナ患者に対応するベッドが減ってきています。で、東京の場合は症状が軽い方は、自宅で療養するのですが、昨日フジテレビという局が報じたところによると、8月1日に、自宅で体調が悪くなった人が、200件、救急車を呼んだんですけども、そのうち病院に搬送できたのが半分だったというふうに報じられております。もちろんオリンピックの中は安全なのかもしれませんが、その外のところで市民が苦しんでいる、困難な状況に置かれているという状況について、お二人はどういう思いを持ってますか。思いやるようなお気持ちはありますでしょうか。よろしくお願いします。
Yeah, completely sympathise, and this situation is unfortunately not unique to Japan. There are problems in my country. In fact, the rate of infectivity is much higher there. There are countries all around the world where this is a serious problem. So, of course, we have a great deal of sympathy with everyone. One thing I would emphasise is, and I think I'm right in saying this, I can check afterwards, but I think there is, as far as I know, only one hospital bed being taken up by a Olympic-related COVID patient, but I will check on that. So, and even if it's not one, by the way, the number is vanishingly small. So we are not taking any resources. And as you probably also know, the IOC also offered 200 medical staff to help out in the village and so on, so that we wouldn't take away any of the personnel from Tokyo. So we have a great deal of sympathy. We understand that. We all come from similar situations, a lot of us in our own countries, so of course we have a great deal of empathy. And that is why we are carrying on to give the Japanese people such confidence in what we're doing, why we're testing. I don't know what the latest figure is. I think we're up to 400,000. And, to repeat it's getting a bit tired, but it's true. It is the most tested community anywhere in the world. And I think that the Japanese people can take a great deal of confidence in that, plus the playbooks, plus the distancing that's involved in that, and the fact that the two populations, whereas, of course, they have to meet on certain occasions, they meet in very strict, controlled ways, but they are more or less living parallel lives. And so the games are going on, and we hope that and we've heard earlier on, that the games are actually being watched by a lot of people. A lot of people are enjoying it. And as Governor Koike said of Tokyo the other day, it's a good thing because a lot of people are staying at home. A lot of Tokyoites are staying at home. So all in all, we feel for you. We have the same situation in our own countries, and we're doing absolutely everything we can. And we think we hopefully are giving you confidence that the situation is okay. Masa.
はい、ありがとうございます。マークが話したことに大変同意する部分があります。昨年からですね、同様に特に原田さんからはご質問いただいてたと思いますし、ただ私たちのスタンスはずっと変わらなかったというふうに思います。当然国内、世界のどこかで、このコロナの状況によって苦しんでいらっしゃる方がいることは非常に心を痛めますし、 その一方でその大会を開催することによって、僕たちはその世の中に対してどういう貢献ができるんだろうということも、一方で本当に熟慮しながらこのプロジェクトに関わってきました。ちょうどうちのスタッフが昨日電車の中で小学生に声をかけられたと言ってすごく目を輝かせながらオリンピックの仕事をしてるんですかと言って、ゆりかもめに乗りながら会場の紹介をしながら来たらしいんですけれども、子どもたちその子どもたちにとっては、今目の前で世の中で起きていることは間違いなく忘れられない記憶になるというふうに思いますし、やっぱりそのアスリートが、今テレビの中でテレビの向こう側かもしれませんけれども、目の前の目標にぶつかっていく様子を見ながら人生においてその目標を持って一生懸命毎日を過ごしていくことの尊さとか、そういうやはりそのかけがえのない価値が今私たちのこのプロジェクトによって一方でもたらされていると思います。その中でもちろんその今苦しんでいらっしゃる方への配慮を忘れず、医療関係者に対して地域の医療の体制に対して影響が最小限になるようにしっかりバランスをですね取りながら配慮しながら注意深く計画をしてきたというふうに思いますし、その実行がこれまでできているというふうに認識しています。
ありがとうございます。
I should just say I actually misspoke. It's actually 500,000 tests now since July. There was someone at the back here. Let's have you two, gentleman there and lady there, and then we'll come down here. Yeah. Thank you.
共同通信の中村です。日本語で失礼します。ここ数日、東京の街中でも、外出したと思われる関係者や、街中を取材する、海外メディアの報道クルーを見る機会がだいぶ増えてきました。もちろんこれは彼らがルールを守って14日間が経過して外に出たものというふうに考えていますけれども、一方で、これまでの、資格剥奪などの際にあったように、外形的につまり、市民の人たちから見れば、彼らがその14日間のルールをきちんと遵守した上で外に出ているのか、もしくは、何らかのプレイブックのルールに違反しているのかということを見分ける術がないという問題があると思います。で、こうした問題に対して組織委員会 IOC は何らかその証明書等の彼らが、自分たちがルール違反をしていないということを、第三者に証明するような手段を用意することを検討されているでしょうか。
はい、ありがとうございます。外見上ですね、その14日間以上かどうかということが、見分けがつくような対応は今しておりませんけれども、重ね重ねプレイブック違反が疑われるような、何か状況があれば組織委員会 IOC に報告をいただいて、私たちは個別に対応をしていくという方針でこれまで努めさせていただきました。大会終了まで同じアプローチ、同じ対象で努めさせていただく方針に変わりがありません。
Yeah, gentleman there. Yeah, and then lady at the back. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Hiroshi Hiyama from Agence France-Presse. Two issues. One is related to the heat in Sapporo. The other is Belarus. It's very hot in Sapporo. Obviously, the race walk, other events will be starting very soon. In addition to what you have already done coming into the game, are you doing anything additional to mitigate the heat situation or to deal with the heat situation for athletes, volunteers, etc., schedule changes, all that kind of thing? And the other is Belarus. The organization Global Athletes have called on IOC to suspend Belarus's National Olympic Committee and criticizes that the IOC has failed to fulfill its responsibility to defend its protect athletes, etc., etc. your take, please. And are you doing anything in addition to what you are already doing? Are you doing anything to protect other athletes from Belarus or anywhere else so that they can perform at their highest and ensure their safety? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. As you know, we took the decision with the World Athletics to move to Sapporo because it would be cooler. It's supposed to be 4 or 5, I think, degrees cooler on average than Tokyo. In terms of, so there are a whole range of heat reducing and heat mitigating measures that are already underway. In terms of extra ones, I'm not aware personally, but maybe Masa, do you want to?
Yeah, I think we have been reiterating the approaches in terms of the countermeasures on heat, particularly for these endurance sports. International Federation is also having a different countermeasures on this weather. Even after the decision on the relocation of the marathon and race walk events to Sapporo, of course, there will be extra countermeasures such as the extra water table concerning the event of marathon and etc. etc. So we do have a strong countermeasures on heat, and of course we are trying to provide as much our efforts as possible to protect the athletes' condition.
Thank you very much. On the question about Belarus, I mean, yes, I'll come to all the points. Obviously, first and foremost, our responsibility is the safety of the athlete. So just give you a little update on that first. So we spoke yesterday twice to Kristina Simonouskaya. We spoke to her twice. She reassured us once again she's feeling safe and secure. I believe there's a call going on this morning with her as well. And together with the relevant authorities and the competent organizations, she is planning her future. We're also, as I said yesterday, in contact with UNHCR, our partner, which is helping her. In fact, we were in contact with them right from the get-go, at the very beginning, on the evening of, as well, I can tell you now. I was mentioning it yesterday on the night of the incident. She is, as I say, in a safe and secure place. We've also now contacted the NOC of Poland. If you've been following, you have, obviously, the story. And in terms of what the IOC can do for her in terms of her future, we have talked to them with regard to her sport after her arrival in Warsaw, if that's where she does indeed choose to end up. So in terms of her safety and security, I think we've dealt with most of the issues that needed to be dealt with. As I said yesterday, we have asked for a report from the NOC today. We requested it yesterday. We want it today. We have decided to launch, not surprisingly, a formal investigation, which will be led by the IOC administration. We need to establish the full facts. We need to hear everyone involved. That obviously can take time. And in the meantime, obviously, our first concern is for the athlete. In terms of safeguarding, first and foremost, I think actually the actions that we've taken together with our partners should hopefully give confidence not just to Belarusian athletes, but to all athletes, that the IOC will take their worries, their concerns seriously and will act on them. We've done that, and we hopefully that will give them confidence. There are, in terms of facilities in the village, there are 10 full-time IOC staff there at all levels in the village. They're living there. They deal with the athletes day to day directly, not through their NOCs, but through their NOCs as well. But they directly deal with them. They are approachable. They're obvious. You can talk to them. There's also a very large Tokyo 2020 team there, and anyone would be happy, willing to accept any approach and be talked to. That's obvious. There is also a safeguarding officer in the village for everyone. There are psychologists and a polyclinic there as well, which people can go to. So there are many, many opportunities. And there's also a hotline, a mental health hotline, but it's a hotline in general for athletes, which is in 70 languages. So it's available to everyone. And as I would say, and as I was trying to stress, this is not just for athletes from one particular NOC. This is for athletes from all 205 that are here and the Refugee Olympic team, that they can then come. So I think there are facilities available. We are now investigating. We're expecting a report today. We do need to establish the facts before we take any further action. And I think all of those put together should, I hope, give confidence to all athletes that the IOC is listening to them and acting on any concerns that they may have. Yeah, there was a lady at the back, I think, who wanted a question. And then, and then gentleman here, and then we'll come here.
東京新聞の小島と申します。検査結果の把握についてちょっと確認をさせてもらいたいんですが、細かいことなんですけれども、今のシステムだと、私たちもやってますが、検体を提出するとともに、自分たちでアクレジ番号とバーコードナンバー、ナンバーを登録します。で、それが一つでも一文字でも違えば、アクレジと検体が結びつかないことになって、システム上各シール号で把握しようと思ってしても把握できないケースが出ていると思うんですね。で、それが何件ぐらい、50万件をこれまで検体提出され、スクリーンテストをやったとありますが、これは果たして提出されたものの数なのか、それともシステム上ちゃんとアクレジで個人と結びついて登録されているものの数なのか。で、もちろん9割以上は超えていると思うんですが、補足されてないものが何%ぐらいあるのかなということと、あともう一つもし誰のものかわからないけれども陽性だったという、そういうケースというのはあるんでしょうか。
はい、以前ご説明したかもしれませんけれども、実際には確かに番号の打ち間違い等でアイコン上に検査結果が反映されないようなケースがあるというふうに理解しています。なかなかエラーで上がってこないと。重ね重ね皆さん規定のフリークエンシー頻度でですね検査を受けていただくことになっているので、検査結果が反映されない場合には組織委員会の方から CLO に対してこの人検査を受けてませんよということをリマインドさせていただいてしっかり規定の回数プレイブックに規定の回数の検査を受けていただくことにしています。その割合がちょっと何%かというのは今数字を持ち合わせているわけではありません。本当に皆様のご協力が不可欠な部分ですので、正確なご入力検査へのご協力を改めて呼びかけさせていただきたいと思います。
Yeah, gentleman here, then lady here. Yeah, thank you.
共同通信社の新井と申します。日本語ですみません。アダムスさんにお尋ねしたいんですけれども、バッハ会長がですね、広島市に回答されました。改めてになるんですが、8月6日に黙祷しないという、判断をされた理由を教えてください。並びに、バッハ会長7月16日に広島を訪れ、五輪を通じて平和に貢献したいという話をされていました。今回の8月6日に黙祷しないという判断はですね、7月16日の広島訪問がただのパフォーマンスなのではないかと言われても仕方のないような気もしますが、その見解も合わせてお願いします。
Well, as I've said before, and I won't go into in great length, but obviously the Games are one of the greatest expressions of global peace in the world. So in the broadest sense, if you get 205 national Olympic committees and the refugee Olympic team competing against each other fiercely and then sharing their meals and sharing the same roofs in the village, it does give us all a glimpse, hopefully, of how the world could be. So I think the contribution of the Olympic movement to peace through the athletes is it shouldn't be underestimated. It is huge. The President has yesterday written to the Mayor in response, so I won't. I think it wouldn't be right for me to divulge the details of that. I'm sure probably the Mayor, I think he posted his letter on the website, so I'll probably post the response. As you said, we went to Hiroshima before the Games as a deep sign of respect, and we hope that it was understood in that way. That's how it was intended. There will be a moment of remembrance and reflection in the closing ceremony for people to reflect on these issues. But I think in general, the IOC is a sporting organisation, but it's also, in very many ways, a peace organisation as well. Yes, lady here. Thank you.
Radio France and Libération newspaper, Nishimura. I have also a question about the test. I'll try to be short and clear because it's a little bit complicated, but the way you are evaluating the situation is always to talk about the positivity rate, which is not used in the general public to evaluate how many people are contaminated among the general public. In the general public, when you evaluate it, you use 100,000 people. How many people in 1,000 people? How many people in 100,000 people has been contaminated? This is the way it's evaluating. In the case of the Olympic, we have in the last 7 days about 150 people contaminated. I would like to know among how many people you find 150 people.
Could I suggest that we find you someone who's running the testing to talk to? Because I think having a conversation about the minutiae of testing and the details and the numbers, I'm probably not the right person. Massa's probably not the right person. I'm happy to get you someone today to talk to who can fill you in on the
I hope you will, because the level is quite high.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I think you may say so, and it seems like you are an expert. So, but I would be good. So if you talk to someone who also has the expertise that I don't, so would be happy to do that, to arrange that afterwards. Let's move over here to Liam from inside the.
'Good morning, Mark. Lim from Inside the Games. Just a quick question on the Belarusian case. You will have seen the CAS decision not to grant her immediate relief. They said that she was not able to prove her case. The IOC has commented on CAS decisions before in the Russian doping case, for example. So what is the IOC's reaction to that CAS decision?
I haven't seen the press release at this moment. Whether we would respond to it or not, I don't know, but I think it's quite detailed.
Is it fair that she didn't get any relief?
I don't know the details, so I can't really tell you whether it's fair or not. Whether she was actually at the case or not would obviously make a big difference.
You must have seen it. I mean, they published it last night, the CAS.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is I don't know the details as to why. I think a full reasoned decision is coming today, so let's wait for that and see, and you can ask me tomorrow. I think hopefully that will explain. With respect, I think we'll move to someone else because I think you've asked a question. Sorry, we'll try to get you, if we can. Lady there at the back, yes, please. Is it? Christine, I think.
Yes, Mark, Christine Brennan with USA Today. As I'm sure you're aware, the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee last night said that it had reviewed the Raven Saunders situation and determined that her expression of her demonstration at the conclusion of her medal ceremony, according to the USOPC, was respectful of her competitors and did not violate our USOPC rules related to demonstration. What is the IOC response to that? Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, we've seen, obviously, their public opinion, and we're in touch with them. We've written them a letter asking for some further information to be able to evaluate the next steps, if any, that should be taken. Obviously, the Games are held under the Olympic Charter and the rules of the Olympic movement. So let's wait and see what clarification we get from USOPC. A gentleman here, and then we'll come over to the two here. Yeah, gentleman. Yeah.
週刊朝日の西岡と申します。今大会ではですね、ネット上での選手の誹謗中傷がすごく問題になっていまして、先日はニューヨークタイムズで大坂なおみ選手への批判がヤフーニュースのコメント欄に出ているということで問題視する記事が出ていました。 ヤフーニュースのコメント欄についてはですね、以前からすごくヘイトコメントが溢れているということで、たくさん問題になっていてですね、今大会も特に思うような成績が出なかった選手や中国や韓国の選手、あとトランスジェンダーの選手にですね批判のコメントが溢れています。でそこでお尋ねしたいのですが、ヤフーは今大会のオフィシャルスポンサーですよね。でオフィシャルサポーターとして活動されていますが、大会組織委員会がこういったヘイトコメントを許容していると思われても仕方がないと思うのですが、そのことについてはどう思われますか。あとは過去にヤフーニュースにこういったコメント欄の問題について意見をしたりとか、今後対応する予定はありますか。
はい、今のご質問、先日も同様の質問があったかというふうに思います。今の本当に世の中においてソーシャルメディアと私たちの生活は密接ですし、今直面しているこの状況が現実だといえばそれまでだというふうに思います。ただ一方でやはりその匿名性がゆえに非常に言語の乱れ、アグレッシブな表現で、見も知らぬ人がですね、全く別の誰かを攻撃するような状況っていうのは、果たしてその社会がそれでいいのかという疑問は私自身強く思っています。これはひとえに今特定のプラットフォームプロバイダーの会社を挙げていただきましたけれども、一つの特定の社に限ったことではなくてですね、その今後、こういったことを契機に、いかにして、この情報伝達に関わる業界の皆さんで、いかにその世の中の倫理観、こういったものをもっとその道徳観にあふれた正しい道に導いていくか、そういったオープンな議論が必要なんじゃないかなというふうに私は思います。今のご質問の最後の部分に関しては、当然ヤフーさんのいわゆるエディトリアルに関わる部分ですので、それに対して組織委員会から何かを具体的に要請するものではありません。ただ一方で今申し上げた通り、この業界にいる一人のスタッフとして大きい問題意識は感じているところではございます。
Let's take these two questions. I think that probably will take us to the end. So Jacqueline Magnet first.
Hi, Massa. Hi, Mark. Massa, I'm just wondering if you have an update from the Olympic Village. You were talking about that there would be sanctions against some of the wild partying that went on and a person was injured. Can we have an update on that? And Mark, at the weightlifting last night, all the journalists that were there at the press tribune and at their seats were given a leaflet, and I have one here, which advocates a very pro-trans position and tells journalists that no one is born with a gender identity. I'm just wondering if this is the official IOC position, whether the IOC approved this to be distributed to journalists, and whether who actually authorised this document. Thanks.
Yeah, sorry. So on your first question, I'm speaking about a particular case that was observed from the night of 30th through the very early in the morning of the 31st. Obviously, we conducted our own investigations and trying to identify who were they, and we were able to identify those involved NOCs, and obviously we issued our strict reminders to those NOCs. And in the meantime, there were some people who were steering the very noisy situation. And then this concerned NOC actually came to Tokyo 2020 with a formal apology, with a letter of apology. And then according to this NOC, they decided to let the delegation, I mean athletes, who already finished their competitions, send back to their home immediately. And they also mentioned to us that they will take any particular appropriate actions after they go back to home, and the organizing committee accepted that. And obviously we keep reminding everyone to follow the playbooks rule.
Thank you, Masa. Yes, Jacqueline, thank you. I mean, I was made aware by you, in fact, indeed, last night of this document. I haven't seen it. I just saw a poster for it. I think it's produced by an organization, I think it said at the bottom, Athlete Ally. I haven't read the content, and we can discuss it afterwards. I think it was a genuine attempt. Obviously, there is a transgender athlete yesterday, Laurel Hubbard, at weightlifting, and I presume this was an attempt by weightlifting to help in the conversation, because this is a very difficult area, and a lot of people, not journalists necessarily, all of us need to educate ourselves about what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, what works, what doesn't work. I would hope that it would be seen, I don't know if it was even approved, but I would hope that it would be seen in that context, because I'm sure that's what it would meant as, and I would presume that knowing my former colleagues, having been in one once myself, I don't think you would be told what to do by a flyer. I think you would make your own decisions and report as you should. So, yeah, it was a final question from Carlos.
Carlos Kroman from Reuters. A question for Mark. If I can go back to the Belarus issue, when do you expect to have a report on this? And will that be during the games or will it be after? And also, if I may, a question on the 2 Chinese medalists yesterday who were wearing a pin of Mao Zedong on the podium. Is that a violation of Rule 50? Thank you.
So, as I said, we have asked for and we expect a report today. We have launched the formal investigation today. These things do take time, and we do have to hear people. It would be unwise, as you know, there are all sorts of issues and rumours floating around, and we need to get to the bottom of it. We need to hear everybody involved. How long that will take, I don't know, but we've asked the report today, and we've launched an investigation today, so we will see. On the issue with the Chinese athletes, we've contacted the Chinese Olympic Committee, asked them for a report about the situation, and we are looking into the matter. It happened yesterday, so just as we would with similar situations, we are pursuing it. Thank you very much. Okay, that's it. Just gone midday, so see you again tomorrow. Don't know who my guest is, but sure they'll be very exciting. Thank you very much, and see you tomorrow.